Let's see how it goes and be open-minded about extending it nationwide.
Holly Walker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm very pleased to be able to take a call to speak in the second reading of this Hutt City Council graffiti removal bill. And this is a bill, a fairly unassuming piece of legislation that will always hold a very special place in my heart. And that is because it was the first piece of legislation that I ever rose to speak in this House about back in the first reading debate at the beginning of this year. And it seems particularly fitting, as someone who was born and raised in Lower Hutt and lives there still, that it is a Hutt City Council piece of legislation that has this particular honour for me. Mr Speaker, I want to congratulate the Hutt City Council for their ongoing efforts in swiftly dealing with vandalism in our city, and also to congratulate them for, at the same time, channeling the energy and creativity of many of our city's talented young people into positive street art projects like the mural of Tana Umanga and Piriwepu in Wainuiomata. I think this council has shown a real willingness and support for empowering young artists and for positive identity-building support of street art that improves our city, and I hope that that support will continue long into the future. But Mr Speaker, this bill is not about graffiti art or street art. It's about vandalism and particularly tagging, which does have a tendency to proliferate on buildings in the Hutt Valley that are abandoned and unoccupied. And we've already heard that the Hutt Valley has a particularly high rate of graffiti vandalism compared to other parts of the country. Where this occurs in public spaces, the Council already has a current and very successful and rapid response to this, and with an excellent response and removal program that has proved very effective for removing tagging from public property. And rapid removal is important in this context because we know that the more tagging and vandalism exists on a building, fence or a wall, the more it is likely to attract. And for an example, I need look no further than around the corner from my own home in Petone to the site of the former Petone College, or even before that, Petone Tech. It's very sad, Mr Speaker, to see the state of that once thriving school site, which is now abandoned, it's covered in tagging, its windows are smashed, and it was, of course, recently the site of a major arson. And in that particular case, I guess the only solace we can take is that that site is soon to be redeveloped into a retirement village, although I have long wished that it could once again be used for educational purposes. But that site, which I certainly would not feel safe entering, is an example of why rapid removal is very important, because as tagging and vandalism proliferates, people begin to feel unsafe. And many residents in the Hutt Valley have identified graffiti as an area of concern that does make them feel unsafe, and we know that it can discourage people from engaging actively in their community. So a rapid response is important. The problem is that tagging and vandalism in the Hutt Valley is often a particular issue on abandoned or unoccupied private properties, and in those cases the council doesn't have the legal ability to enter those premises to remove it. They certainly have the willingness and the capacity, but they don't have the legal right, and that's what this bill seeks to address. It should be noted that it's not the intention of the bill that the council should be able to enter private property and remove graffiti that the property owner consciously wishes to remain there. In fact, owners in that situation will be able to respond to the notices issued by the council within 10 working days to say, thanks, but no thanks, I want to leave that particular piece of art there. And the council and its contractors will take no action if that is the case. And that's an important provision for respecting the rights of property owners. And I was pleased to see that provision extended from 10 days to 10 working days to really make sure that owners have had a chance to exercise that right if they wish to. And this is further reinforced by another very important amendment that the Local Government Environment Select Committee has made, and that is to insert a definition of graffiti into the bill. Now, this was something that I first raised with the Mayor and with Trevor Mallard, the sponsor of the bill. In fact, before I was even elected as an MP, Mr Speaker, which just goes to show you how keen I am about local issues in the Hutt Valley. because I was concerned that a lack of definition really meant that we weren't making good law. Good lawmaking should include clear definitions of its terms, and so I'm pleased to see that that definition quoted by Nikki Wagner from the Summary Offences Act has been inserted into the bill by the committee. And there are two important qualities of that definition, that it talks about graffiti as being only that which is there without legal authority or without the consent of the property owner. So authorised street art, whether it's authorised in public spaces or authorised by the owner of the property, is not included in the definition of graffiti of this bill, and that's very important. I was also concerned, Mr Speaker, with the provision that would have exempted council and their contractors from civil liability if they accidentally damaged the property while on the premises to remove graffiti. And that's especially important because it's important to acknowledge this bill does allow the council to enter property without the knowledge potentially of the owner. If they have not responded to the notice, the council may enter the property within 10 working days. And so I was pleased to see that the Select Committee saw fit to remove that exemption from civil liability. We did hear that the contractor who does this work actually has public liability insurance already, so they wouldn't actually need this provision in order to be able to safely carry out their work. But also it did create some concern, and some concern was expressed by submitters about the potential for damage caused by contractors. And so I'm pleased to see that that is gone and that the Council is happy with that. Mr Speaker, last time the House considered a graffiti removal bill, which was the Manukau City Control of Graffiti Bill, the Green Party opposed that bill. And we did that partly because of concerns about a similar civil liability clause, as well as the wider draconian provisions of that bill. And so I'm very pleased to see that a more reasonable consensus-based approach has been taken to this bill, both by the Council and by the Select Committee. I would like to say, however, that our support of this particular bill and its local ramifications for the Hutt Valley, where I'm from, don't necessarily guarantee that we would support similar bills in other jurisdictions in future. We would have to consider those on their merits and on a case-by-case basis. So, Mr Speaker, I'd like to conclude by congratulating and thanking again Mayor Ray Wallace and his council, both for their proactive efforts to remove graffiti, but also to channel the positivity of it and the creativity of youth in the Hutt Valley into street art and graffiti art projects. I'd like to congratulate Trevor Mallard, my colleague in the Hutt South electorate, for bringing this bill to the House, to thank the Select Committee for working very constructively on this bill, and of course to thank those who took the time to make public submissions. And I commend the bill to the House.
Chris Farfoy.
Mr Speaker, I stand in support of this bill.